Welcome everyone to our EA Zoom meeting today, the upcoming transits and the end of the world as we know it, part 2 with Patrick Chehab Skywalker from the EA message board.
Hi, Wendy. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Patrick.
Thanks for being here.
Glad to be here. It's the end of the world as we know it. There are some big changes coming. So here we are again in part 2 of Patrick's meeting, looking into this controversial topic. Today we are going to have a question and answer session. The audience is encouraged to ask questions and make comments throughout this meeting. And Patrick, I know you have a couple thoughts that you were wanting to share, so we can kick off the meeting with that.
Okay. Well, first thing I want to do, I was thinking this afternoon, I would like to dedicate this talk not to one specific person, but to humanity in general. Because, what we call humanity, it's something, it's spiritual, it's based on compassion, and it's based on goodness, right? The humanitarian side of humans. And this is the reason I want to do that is because there's so much evil, which I also do want to speak about, which is actually the crux of this topic. So that's the first thing I want to say, that I want to dedicate this to humanity, to everyone's humanity and our own hearts, and that, hopefully we can expand our hearts and grow, and people can feel touched, and we can have some hope, let's say. That's the first thing I want to say. The changes that are coming, astrologically, for those who haven't seen the first version or haven't read the article, is based very much on the south node of Pluto, which is in Capricorn, and which is now being conjuncted or transited by Pluto itself, creating a new cycle as it goes around the zodiac. And as we know, Capricorn, Saturn, the 10th house correlate with structure, right? And the structure of anything, the structure of consciousness, the structure of a home, or the structure of society. And as we know, Pluto is the great prime mover, let's say. Pluto is, people like to say that Pluto is the transformer, but actually Pluto is the metamorphosis. It's what creates metamorphosis. It actually correlates with the death and a rebirth, where Uranus, to me at least, is more of the transformer. So when we see these symbols together, Pluto on its own south node and Capricorn, to me, what I see in the world, this isn't only based on astrology, we're going to see huge structural changes that are going to be lasting this whole next cycle. Are there any questions about this so far?
So Patrick, so Pluto is the force of evolution itself, right?
Yeah.
And it shows yeah.
Sorry, please continue.
Yeah, and it shows us how humanity has evolved up until this point. And and there has been a huge focus on Capricorn for about 2,000 years, correlating to the south node of Pluto in Capricorn. And we have
around
another
1,500, yeah.
Around 1,500 years. Okay, and I think we have another 500 or so years of the south node of Pluto in Capricorn. So just letting everyone know that there has been a huge focus on Capricorn for, several thousand years. So, and we've still got heaps more.
Yeah, and when we think of Capricorn, we think of Capricorn as control, right? We think of Capricorn as, along with Taurus, it has to do with resources, right? The earth signs correlate with the earth, the planet Earth, and Pluto is power. So it's power over people, power over the earth, power over everything. And actually what we're moving into is a totally controlled corporate reality. You know, reality is being dictated by people in extreme positions of power, just like has been happening for the past 1500 years with religions, institutions, religious institutions, the popes. Let's remember that the popes, somewhere in the 1500s or so, they divided the world in two between Spain and Portugal, actually. You know, so this whole world domination, it's a theme that has been going on for a very long time, and we can actually see it with Pluto, with the south node of Pluto in Capricorn. And the really interesting part, it's quite fascinating actually, is how astrology, how graphic it is when you understand the symbols. And when we see now that it's going to be making a new cycle, we have a whole new paradigm coming. And this paradigm is going to be based on technology.
Right.
Would you like to add anything? Yeah.
Right, yeah. So if Pluto is the planet of metamorphosis and evolution, therefore the Capricornian structures are changing and evolving. So we are in the process of evolution. But can you speak about how evolution, the rate of evolution, you know, is it slow? Is it fast?
I mean, we learned in evolutionary astrology that evolution is very, very slow. Very, very slow. And one reason for that is because we always tend to gravitate back to whatever it is that feels secure. And this security is actually stemming from the subconscious, Pluto. So, I mean, it takes a very, very long time, and that's why we have so many lifetimes. And relative to what you said about Pluto metamorphosizing, let's realize that the first thing is what is actually evolving is consciousness. That is the first thing that we have to realize. It's the structure of consciousness. And relative to Pluto, as we learned in evolutionary astrology, it correlates with the soul and with the dual desire nature of the soul. So on the one hand, we have the desire to evolve. And on the other hand, we have the desire to stay where we are. And when we see this in the world, we can see that we need the structural change. Like there are many people waking up and people speaking about ascension and, you know, people wanting to come together and share resources and all of that. Yet you have the corporate powers or the people in power who they don't want that to happen. It's really that simple. So at the same time, Pluto correlates with the evolution, change, and with resistance to that evolution. And that's what we're going to be experiencing now. If you ask me, what we're experiencing now is, you know, basically those who are in power really doing their best to maintain their power at all costs, even if the ship goes down.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then when Pluto enters Aquarius, then the people will be having more power. What do you think?
Honestly, not necessarily. I don't think so. What I think is when Pluto enters in Aquarius, some people, those who do not accept the structure, the new structure, will be splitting off. That is what I think, because Pluto, Aquarius correlates with rebellion, right?
Yes.
And what I think, and with groups of people. So what I think there will be minorities, small groups of people who will not accept what is coming and who will simply break off, like in if anyone's seen that movie Mad Max, you know, that kind of style.
I personally think it's going to be the earth is going to intervene. I don't think the feminine is going to put up with all this. There's too much consciousness on the planet, more than ever.
I would hope so. We can hope so. But how would you see that playing out?
Astrologically, I have no idea.
No. I mean in the world, like.
I mean, I have no idea, you know, that there's some higher energy orchestrating it. I just, I mean, if we bring in what Jose said, you know, we could have some asteroid coming and blowing up the planet. But I mean, I think that personally, if I align with my highest energy, and then I can find I'm in peace, and because this is so much dread. There's so much dread and heaviness and oppression. I I don't know.
Well,
I can't buy into that it's just going to get worse and worse and worse.
Well, but this is what...
Oh, hi guys. Can I add something? What I think?
Sure, of course.
I think it is going to get a little bit worse because I think the glamours, it's like it's going to be good against evil and the light against the dark. It's like, because this transformation is happening, but a lot of people are still like remember with the rays, there only certain people are picking up the light. Other people are the consensus, or people that are on the Trump train. Like, how could this be going on? So like, you know, it's like things are kind of like in so many different compartments now, and everything's not aligned or united. So to me, it's very frightening because there's going to be a split. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm just going to listen to you guys, but I think we haven't seen the worst of it yet.
Well, I think you're right, Lauren. I mean, you know, like when an alcoholic or a drug addict hits bottom, it gets worse before it gets better. And 10,000 years of patriarchy, the fallout is big, right? The fallout is going to be big. My point is that if I look at things from me, my personal little self, well, you know, let's just die now, right? I mean, it's just so depressing, right? I can't, if I look at it from a bigger perspective, then there's a lot of grace that can like lead the way versus just like my intellect and, you know, third dimensional Capricorn consciousness.
Definitely.
Lower Capricorn.
I think it's going to be an and, but I think, you know, like nobody's going to give in easily. They're going to probably like try to fight to the last moment because they want to keep what they have.
See, Lauren, but that's the thing. This whole new structure, that's exactly what I was saying. This whole new structure that's coming with the smart cities, with the 5G, with, you know, the whole weather control, because the weather is becoming each time more artificial and all that. That is exactly to keep that control. And something that, you know...
But if we don't watch TV and we're like having conferences like this, we're going to be we're going to be wiser, and we're going to know what's going on. See, these people don't know what's going on. A lot of people just, they just don't know what's going on. We all don't really know, but I mean, we kind of are, we don't just watch TV all day long and go to work and come home and drink a beer and repeat. Like some people do that.
Yeah. Well, let me address something that has been said, which is things like, first, I don't judge things about, for me, things are not, you know, all doom and gloom and everything. Things can be falling apart, but I understand it's part of the process, you know. We are where we're supposed to be, and this is our, let's say, our collective karma for not taking responsibility, for not taking action and all of that. And these are also natural cycles that happen.
I have a question.
Yes.
So is Pluto on the south node of, or on its own south node? Is this an uncovering of all that has been suppressed and buried and you know, buried way down?
Yeah, I mean, Pluto does correlate with exposing stuff, right? So this is something that I wanted to address, which is like Wendy said, things need to get worse before they get better. Everything that's happening now, it's not new. Like I said, like the popes in the 1500s, they were already dividing the world in two. So all of these things that are happening now, they're just becoming revealed. That's all. Nothing is new. It's the same dynamic over and over again, which is a dynamic of distortion, a dynamic of control, a dynamic of power over other people, a dynamic of, let's say, even sadism. Because if you ask me, these evil people, they actually take pleasure in seeing other people suffer. You know, there is a lot of esoteric, dark stuff that does go on. And yes, like you said, all of this is becoming exposed.
The other thing is that's different than the last time Pluto was in Capricorn is that we've passed that 25,000 year cycle, right? We're in the new world. We're already in the new calendar, right? So
you mean the Mayan calendar?
Yeah, we're past that 25,690 year cycle or whatever. So
for me, the big difference is that the last time is when the Industrial Revolution started to happen. This time, the difference is that our world is much more fragile. Our resources, our ecosystems, they have been suffering this, the extraction and of resources and the polluting of the atmosphere and all of that. That is, for me, the major difference, you see, because our Earth cannot support this lifestyle that the majority has. And something that I also want to address is that a lot of people, even awakened people, they think that humans, they're like, just destroying everything. And they are, but that isn't how we naturally are. This is how the people in power, the people behind the corporations, behind the big money and all of that, they have structured society in this way. People even call themselves consumers. To consume something is to kill it, basically. So this has to do with our perception.
But, okay, go
how
ahead,
we see ourselves.
Linda?
Yes. Did you want to say something, Wendy?
Oh, I thought you were going to say something.
I was, but you can go ahead if you like.
Well, I think, okay, so we can look at the South Node, but we need to look at the North Node too, right? Because let's say this chart is an individual soul. Mm-hmm. It's never just the South Node, right? The North Node is pulling you, right? It's pulling you. There's this natural affinity towards the North Node as well. And, I just feel like I'm more resolved now than ever that the feminine is rising in such a profound way that there's more to this transformation. There's a reclamation of Capricorn, taking it back. And yes, I have no idea how it's going to happen.
Well, it has to happen through respect. It has to happen through care.
Yeah, of course.
And actually, there's an interesting transit that is coming up that I wanted to point out, which is Neptune is going to be trying that North Node.
Yeah.
You see, and this can be a symbol for unity. Unity between people for a common cause, people uniting for principle, because that is the problem. Our principles, they just stood all over, which is basically natural law, which is, for example, in principle, you cannot pollute a river. No one can pollute a river. If you go, back in the days or to the American Indians or something like that, these are things that are just, obvious. You don't even need to teach anyone that. But now we've gotten to a point where things are so messed up that, everything, wrong is right and everything is upside down in that sense. So yeah, it can be a symbol for unity, and I think it will be a symbol for unity when Neptune finds its Pluto's North Node.
Patrick, and both you guys and everybody, but everything's been exploited already. Like, the Indians have been exploited, the power's taken over, and to me, it's like Mother Earth, there's other components besides just, like Mother Earth has got an intelligence, and she's going to probably, something's going to happen, I believe, that's going to have to make things stop, because people are so stuck in their egos, and it's all about making money and them, and priorities are so messed up. I just don't see how it's just going to switch.
I mean, let's remember we had World War II, right, when there was atomic bombs and stuff like that, and the Earth didn't do anything. This is a free will planet, and if humans decide to live this way, then we have, let's say, the right to live this way in a way. Now,
yeah, but what I'm saying, we've been extinct. We've been extinct as a race before, like a volcano blew. We had
yeah.
So what I'm saying is that very well is a possibility, I believe, because, I mean, I don't know. Nobody really knows really what's going to happen, but Neptune can be more Maya too. It could be oneness, but I think it's revealing the Maya. Like, we're all like seeing now what's really going on. And that's the thing that's going to, I mean, Neptune is it's a powerful planet, and it's very I think it's one of the trickiest ones, because it just, you don't even realize what it's doing sometimes.
Yeah, that's Neptune. It's the fog. Yeah. Well, relative to what I think you were saying before is, for me, what would make sense, the two things that could actually let's say, provoke a positive change. One would be if some sort of alien intelligence would actually come to Earth and help us out, basically. Or if there would be sort of cataclysms, natural disasters that would force people to unite.
True.
I don't see any other, I don't see these people in power suddenly giving up of all of it, saying, okay, people be happy now. That's not their nature. Yeah, that's not their nature.
I agree.
I have a thought, kind of, I know we're trying to move towards the north node of Cancer, but you do have that danger with Cancer of tribalism, of, I'm going to do for what's mine or those who look exactly like me and screw everybody else. So this, the people in power are only going to have as much power as we give it. And as long as we keep with this, well, you don't look like me, so, screw you and whatever I do to get for my family, my own, until we realize that we're all in the same boat.
Exactly.
And we have to, there's more of us than it is of them.
Yeah, but
definitely.
At that point, until that's realized, I don't think we're going to get anywhere.
I don't either, because it's like I thought we made progress with racism and separation and prejudice, and it's worse than ever. It's like it's happening all the time, and the people in power are getting away with all this violence and abuse, and we're putting people in cages. It's just like we are going. It's like it's horrid what's going on, and people just hide their heads in the sand and act like, well, it's not happening to me.
Well, let's look at it from a true Scorpio, right? There's always the shadow and there's always the light, right? It's not all this darkness, right? Even though I get it. What you're saying, Lauren's true. It's horrendous, right? It's horrific. And I mean, one thing that I have thought over the years, and I wrote it in that little article that I sent you, Patrick, it's like, if we look at indigenous culture and that level of consciousness, we're a little blip down here, right? We're like we're little tiny pieces of sand compared to the galaxy, right? And then our galaxy is inside of another galaxy. There's a lot more going on,
right,
than we're aware of.
And that's only in this dimension.
Right. And I would say that, and I'll use the example again of like somebody getting sober or whatever, right? Like, or recovering from sexual abuse or, anything difficult, really difficult, right? It's like we have this like vision, tunnel vision, and you can't see any other solution, any other hope, right? What is that whole consciousness ask? It asks you to surrender to something higher than yourself. I'm going to go to the Pisces thing, right? And because there is some solution. It doesn't have to all just be deception and delusion. I mean, there's some miracles are going to come in here.
Right. Something else about intelligence, and who knows? They just found water on Mars. So there's so many other things. Maybe there will be something from another planet or something who knows what's going to happen, but what I'm saying is anything is possible. But as we go, we're destroying our basic fundamentals, and I always say in healing it's back to basics. Well, water, I'm not trying to get scary or anything, but if water and the soil and where we grow our food and the atmosphere, we can't even be in the sun like we used to. It's like these things are real, good air. So how are we going to survive in a world that we've totally abused? And we have to figure out how we're going to morph. Like, I hate that word roach, but roaches, they like kind of can handle anything. They get, I don't know if we are able to adapt to such conditions.
Yeah, so as I was saying, with Neptune is going to be trining the north node of Pluto, and this can be a symbol for unity. And it is possible that because of the tyranny or the tyranny, people they want to zone out. It's like they say, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. And Uranus and Taurus, we're going to start seeing a lot of people, they're going to want to be self-sufficient. They're going to want to move to the countryside and stuff like that. So, you know, at least I want to make this very clear that for me, I may speak about very negative topics. It's like uncovering the dirt. But for me, I don't judge things as, you know, doom and gloom. Things are what they need to be. And this is what we need to understand, because we are spiritual in essence. We are not from here. We're not supposed to be here forever. And I really want to stress that what matters here is the awareness that we can expand, not only for us, but for others. Because a lot of us, we're not even from here originally. And we're here because we're here to help. And even if we are from here, then, I mean, if we think about it, like, we're going to die. We could be dead tomorrow. We could already be dead, whatever. It really matters how much we can help this place improve. This is my North Node and Virgo speaking, by the way. But I mean, I think this is what really makes sense, and this is what we're speaking about on the message board with Elena, which is to have a life that has a meaning, that has purpose. You know, besides our personal purpose, you know, of having children, having them educated, having a life with some sort of social meaning and all of that, but no, contributing to, like Wendy said, a higher purpose, a higher good. And that higher good, it doesn't have to be some very complex mumbo-jumbo stuff. No, simply based in truth, based in love, based in service. This is something that I really want people to know.
The other thing that I think happens is, like, Wanda, what you were talking about with the young woman, right, that happened this week. There's so much violence and so much stuff going on that we absorb it, right? And then I think for me, I'll talk about me. If I take all that in constantly, I go into a state of trauma. It's like being in a constant level of trauma. Like, I feel like Uranus is on top of me constantly. It's like too much, you know? And then I'm not in any solution mode, right? I'm not like in like accessing all the tools, the invisible tools that I use, that I work with. So I'm not very present, right? So we're having to go much deeper now. And I would say that all of our tools have to be, I'm going to go back to that same example. So as I deepen and grow, my higher power grows, right? Or my tools grow. So upgrade. We have to constantly upgrade to deal with the level of density and the level of heaviness that comes up. Now, that's maybe easier said than done, but it has to be built. It's like me communicating with a cat 3,000 miles away. I mean, okay, I could say that just naturally happens, but I also practiced at it. That's what makes it doable in a short period of time, right? In a 5-minute increment. Whereas with somebody else, it might take them a couple days or an hour or whatever. So I feel like we have to keep building more and more solution tools within us to deal with what's going on. Because especially as the technology comes, like, that's more interference, right? I feel like it's a sci-fi movie, personally. It's like a sci-fi movie.
Can I suggest that, you know, all of this, like what you said, this happens in the media. The media wants to shock you and keep you traumatized, exactly like you're saying, Wendy. You know, it's all this sensationalist news stuff that is really just to keep people stuck in these horror loops, you know? Like, I really suggest people to stay away from as much media as they can. Like, I do not watch any TV. And also stuff like, you know, social media and stuff like that. This is all there to hook you. It is pulling us in slowly into what I'm calling digitalia, you know, so that, and trust me, it isn't going to be long until this stuff is inside our bodies and until we are living in an augmented or virtual reality type world that we cannot get away from. You see, so I mean, we have to be aware, because as we know, we're consciousness, right? This is what we are on a fundamental level. And what you said, Wendy, it reminds me, which is like, where you focus your consciousness is where you're going to live. So if you always focus on doom and gloom and suffering, that's what you're going to live. It's that simple. And these people, they're always telling you, focus here, focus here, focus here, with their stupid TVs, you know. And that's the thing, we have to decondition from that stuff. We have to get away from it and create the lives and create the, you know, the focus that we want to. It's really that simple.
So Patrick, oh, go ahead, Wanda.
There's something I wanted to address, especially something Lauren had said earlier, about not the big issue here, and I'm speaking from a different perspective than you all are. There's a lot of this we didn't realize that, you know, what's going on here, the us against them, the racism and all of this, that it wasn't so bad. It's always been here. And it's kind of hard to tell someone that, okay, you know, just don't watch TV and all this and that, when those that are experiencing this live in this skin. We can't just change our skin color. And
I understand, Wanda. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but no one said just don't watch TV and everyone's going to be fine. I said it specifically, like, because they want to keep you in these horror loops. They want to traumatize you, and they want to keep you in these negative vibrations. You see, I agree with you about the racism. It's been like this for thousands of years, no doubt about it. So please don't misinterpret my words.
Well, let me say, Wanda, I could feel, I was going to say something. It's such a fine line, right? Because like you said, it has been here. It's nothing new. It's been going on and on and on. Now, because of social media and all this, we see everything. So I think for me, I have to know myself how much I can take. So with what happened with that woman and those sisters, I've been holding that in my consciousness. And I know there are people that are doing groundwork on it. It's like you have to know where you're working, where can you be best of service? Where can I be best of service? And I know myself, if I focus on that too much, I get paralyzed. I can't function. I get into too much trauma myself, and then I'm of no good. So how do you handle it, Wanda? Like, what were you gonna say or finish saying?
I guess that's the part that, as far as addressing that, it still seems like that, even with Neptune and Pisces, kind of just really revealing all of this that, you know, that everyone has wanted to say, well, you know, it's gotten worse since Obama or whatever. It's gotten worse because of this social media and all this other stuff. Well, like I say, when it's now in the face. So how are people still denying this? You know, and for those of us who this kind of stuff happens to, it's traumatizing when you step outside your door, because you're wondering if some idiot, you know, because of all of these crazy beliefs, are going to end your life. You know, it's easy to say, okay, just don't watch TV, just don't get on the social media or anything like that. But you got people who are walking in the skin, in these bodies. You know,
right.
It's trauma,
it's
just stepping out the door.
It's a whole culture that's been seriously traumatized, and it's horrific. There's no question. It's horrific. I think it's also comes down to a soul level. Like my friend who grew up on the White Earth Reservation in Minnesota, in, you know, squalor, basically. They didn't have anything. She's like highly spiritual. She doesn't buy into anything. She doesn't like she's not in the trauma, and she could be. So I don't know. I just know, like, for my own work, when I was working on my own abuse and all this stuff, I kept attracting it to me because I was holding it in my body energetically. And my point, my work, I think, in the world is helping people transform the pattern and coming more and more into their power. Because the more of us that are awake and in our power, because we create this world with our thoughts, we create this place. We are co-creators. And we can bring change from consciously collaborating. That's, I mean, I think on a personal level, that's where our power is.
That's totally true. And I want to say it again, Wanda. The reason that I'm saying don't watch TV and everything, it's not so that you don't see reality. It's precisely so that you can focus your consciousness on positive things. Because like Wendy is saying, this stuff, it just, you know, it's just going to suck you in it. And it's going to keep you living in the trauma loop and everything. You see, no one is downplaying what happened. The only thing is, like, why is the stuff on TV? Why are they showing it to you? Because they want you to be in a state of anxiety, of suffering. You see, this is what I'm saying when I say to switch off the TV and to be careful with social media and everything, because they are your consciousness. And with that consciousness, it's, you know, you're basically unlimited in your creativity. But if these people are choosing where you're to focus your consciousness, well, then you've kind of given your power away. And that's exactly what Wendy's saying.
I think there's a fine line too with that, Patrick, is that it's not about ignoring it, Wanda, right? Or pretending like it's not happening, because the fact that it's being exposed is also a positive thing, right? There's a positive side of it that's being more exposed. And even though I'm not African American and I'm not from India or whatever, I'm not Israeli, I can feel the level of trauma because I can go out and I see it. I see people like in that state and it feels awful. I feel awful about it. I want to do something about it. But I get sucked in there and then I'm stuck there. I get stuck there. So I personally have to change my thinking, raise my vibration, raise my level of consciousness so I can exude love, so I can be in the presence of love for somebody that might need it. And if I get killed along the way, then that's what's supposed to happen, I guess. I don't know. There's big questions. But, you know, Byron Katie would say, you know, she would break it down and break it down and break it down if she was working with a person individually. And is this true? Is this true? She's got some stuff about racism. Anyway, that might be helpful. I don't know.
I mean, let's remember something. In this life, you might be white, you might be Chinese, you might be African, you might be male, you might be female. But it doesn't mean that in the past life you weren't something else, and another one something else and something else. So when you identify with yourself as a soul, all of this stuff, it kind of, you know, fades away, right? It's only social, it's only conditioning. And when you see, you know, another consciousness there, even if it's animal or whatever, then you start to develop more compassion for one another. So none of this is about race or any of that. So
Patrick, Capricorn does correlate with race.
Yes, it does.
And also the conditioning patterns, and also time itself. And so I'm thinking those people who, you know, watch a lot of TV, you know, and don't have a great social purpose, have a lot of time on their hands and, you know, are kind of abusing their time. That's what they choose. But other people like us are wanting to do something about it.
I mean,
can I say something when you guys are done? Let me know.
Yeah, to me, it has to do with personal authority, Linda. You see, Saturn, Capricorn, the 10th house, they correlate with authority. And if you aren't sovereign, if you don't take your authority in your hands, then there's always going to be someone that's going to be all too happy to have you under their authority. It's really that simple for me.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Lauren.
Yep. Okay, thanks. Well, I was thinking as well as that people are like having cellular memories from other lifetimes as well. So Saturn rules fear. And we're all going through this. And we have been so many like holographic things at the same time, if that makes sense. So what I am saying is that when we see this, and of course we are, you know, empaths, we take this in and it does traumatize us because we have been there. But so I believe what you're trying to say, Patrick, is to limit the amount we take in, because then we internalize it and we get into trauma where they want us. And we don't go out, we don't do this, you know, and it could be a scary world if you view it that way. But there also can be a line of protection for us too, I believe. Maybe I'm being too idealistic, and I do think there is separation and prejudice. It always is. It's always been there. Jewish, black, yellow, orange. So this is just really standing out now because I think it's what needs to get transformed, Pluto. You know?
Yeah, I agree with that. But what I'm saying is that remember that we're consciousness, and where you focus your consciousness is where you're going to create your reality. If someone focuses their consciousness on stuff that makes them angry, then they're going to become angry. And it's a matter of when people are always watching TV, when they're always reading the fake news, when they're always watching media, whatever it is, then what does that mean? It means that other people are choosing what you're going to focus your consciousness on, right?
True. That's a great point.
Okay, and this is what I mean when I say to switch off from TV and social media. It has nothing to do with suppressing what's happening. No, okay, something happened. Okay, but but there's also a zillion other things happening. Why are all the news stations focusing on that? It's because there's an agenda. They want you to see that. They want to manipulate your emotional states. You see, that is the thing. There is an agenda behind what they show, because all of this is, remember, Pluto correlates to perception, and they want to control your perception. They want to control your beliefs. They want to control your emotions. This is what I mean when I say to switch off from all of this stuff, because all of this is engineered. It is made to make you feel a certain way and to move you in a certain direction. That is what I mean.
That's brilliant, you know, Patrick, because when I studied art in art school, I remember we went back in time when the Christianity just first came in. That's what they made the stained glass. They wanted it to be mystical and really, so people would believe and they would kill you if you wouldn't conform. So the power, you're right. I totally agree with you, totally.
You know, something that I remembered not too long ago, which is when I was in school, one day they made this presentation. They took everyone to the gym, and you know, the whole school was there and everything. And they started giving a presentation about smoking, about why you shouldn't smoke. Don't smoke. Don't do this. Don't do that. And you know, teenagers, if you tell them not to do something, they're going to do it, right? The truth is that after that day, everyone started smoking. Very shortly after, people started smoking because, I mean, suddenly here you're focusing on this thing. They're telling you don't do this to a bunch of teenagers. And there you go, you know, you're smoking. It's really, really interesting dynamic. And people know that wherever you focus your consciousness is where you're going to create reality. Even if you're saying, I don't want this, like, I don't want to drop the cup, I don't want to drop the cup, you're going to drop the cup. You know, and this is really what this is the point that I'm trying to stress, which is they want you to focus your consciousness on whatever is part of their agenda. This is the thing. That is why we have all of this information, disinformation, and all of these distractions, all of this music, and I love music. I'm not criticizing music. What I'm saying is the way that it's used. You know, all of these distractions there to keep you away from what? This is the thing. What do they want to keep people away from? From yourself, from your true essence, which is where your power lies, which is exactly what Wendy is saying, you know, to connect to a higher power.
From your evolution, right? Because then if we look at the EA structure, like 70% consensus and then individuated and spiritual, the higher or the next level you go, the smaller the group is, right? So because if we were based in natural law, then we would be evolving way more naturally, right? We wouldn't have all this like upheaval and drama and craziness and darkness. but it's here and we have to face it. And I think the thing that I've learned over the years, because I personalized so much, I absorbed so much from with all that Virgo, right? The Virgo generation, and my Venus there, right? I have Venus and Chiron with those planets and the nodes. So, I mean, in the fourth house, right? Talk about absorption, and an eighth house moon. So I personalized all of it. And so I had to learn I learned as I came into my power and unwinding and taking back my power and my essence, not to personalize it so much, because that was keeping me in that constant loop. And it still happens. I'm still working with it, but the less I personalize it and use more of my Uranus Pluto conjunction type energy, I can transmute it and transform it in that Chiron so that I can be a master of it and be of service with it. So I don't know how the consensus is going to deal, how we're all going to deal, because we're all in this together, except that there's got to be a bigger solution than 3D. 3D is not going to get us out of it. There's no way. We have to evolve into these other consciousness dimensions that are real. Science has proven it now. We have to step into fifth dimensional consciousness and live it and own it and walk with it.
Well, this is something that I was thinking when they're speaking about when Pluto enters Aquarius, which is this can be an opportunity for a lot in the consensus to actually wake up. If we think about it, you know, I mean, all of this shock, and I mean, shocks happen. If we look at Uranus, many times the traumas happen because you're doing, you know, something that is counterproductive to yourself. So it's kind of like the tarot card, the tower. You get thrown out of the tower, right? So that you can wake up. And this is what's happening to people. Where if we're all, I mean, you see people crossing the streets looking at their phones, right? Then you get hit by a car. That's trauma. If you survive it, then you're going to learn a lesson. Because we live in a free will reality. And in this free will reality, there's certain laws. And one of the laws is the law of cause and effect, right? If you do this action, there's going to be a proportionate reaction. And all of this leads to what? Leads to experience, leads to growth, leads to understanding, to knowledge. So when Pluto does enter Aquarius, it can be that a lot of people, because of the weird technology that's coming, because of what is happening to the atmosphere, with the geoengineering, with all the pollution, because of the social changes that are going to come with the smart cities, and everyone's going to be on camera 24/7 with behavioral analytics and everything, people are going to realize, holy shit, I didn't sign up for this, right? I was paying my taxes, I was voting, I was believing in a democracy or in a republic or whatever it is that we have in the majority of the world, and they're going to see like all of this is not true, right? So at that point, they're going to be confronted with a choice, which is, am I going to listen to the weirdos and the hippies? Like maybe they were right, or am I going to suppress even more, and I'm gonna, you know, just turn into a robot, because that is what's happening. So everything for me, it has to do with choice points and opportunities, actually. You know, and for me, again, we're spiritual beings, and in that sense, we're in a way invincible. We can become traumatized and be in these karmic loops for eons, but deep down, no, we're always going to return to our source. And since we're speaking so much about regaining our power, I really think that the only way to really regain power on an ultimate level is to reconnect with your source, to reconnect. The only way to do that is through truth, because when we remember, I wrote about the age of Pisces being the age of deception. Of course, it's not only deception, but in deception, this is how evil operates. This is how they can come and bullshit everyone. Like when we look at the voting, they tell you all the lies, and then they come, you vote for them, they come and they change everything, and they don't do whatever they said they were going to do. And this happens cyclically. Everybody knows this. So when we live in truth, we break all of these patterns. Like, hey, I'm not going to believe in you anymore. You know, it's this sort of thing that is really going to empower people. And it's this sort of people that is then you're going to attract your tribe. When you live in truth, you're going to recognize others that are also living in truth. So this is where we're going to empower ourselves. And this is where we're going to start creating alternative movements.
So Patrick, how about we have a 15-minute break and we'll come back to continue. Is that okay?
I think 15 minutes is a long time for a break, don't you think?
But we do need this break.
For 15 minutes?
How about
okay.
10 minutes?
If you say so.
Yeah, we do need a break. Okay, so we'll be back soon, everyone. Wanda, go ahead with your question.
I just was asking about the Capricorn archetype because I'm looking at it since it begins the 10th house. So it seems like there's that bridge point. Do we continue further on to the Aquarius and the Pisces archetype, or do we stop at that? Make that Capricorn archetype the actual the end, the border. So it seems like that's how things have been, kind of going. So I kind of like your thoughts on that placement of the Capricorn archetype.
I don't really understand if that's a question, though. Sorry.
I guess when I'm looking at the Capricorn archetype, do you see it as the beginning of the individuation process?
Oh, yeah. In that sense, well, I mean, something that I really focus on a lot is, Capricorn has to do with maturity, right? Emotional maturity and, in that sense, sovereignty. So how can you be a true free individual like Aquarius, Uranus, if you haven't assumed your responsibility, right? In that sense, if you're not adult, if you're not responsible for what you do. This is the thing. This is really important socially. And actually, I'm glad that you're talking about Capricorn, because Capricorn, it's been so distorted. Let's look at, for example, in society, let's look at in a court of justice, right? If you commit something or you don't commit a crime, whatever, you go to court, the first thing they ask you is whether you're guilty or innocent, right? I mean, the truth is we're all guilty and we're all innocent, but nobody asks you if you're responsible. So we have this whole Capricorn archetype so distorted, which is then when you are responsible, you're guilty and you need to be punished. You see what I mean? So in a sense, nobody or very few people, they're actually living in a way that they're fully responsible. When you're responsible, even if you do make a mistake, you stand up and you say, okay, I am responsible for this mistake and I will try to rectify it in whichever way possible. You don't need to beat yourself up because of it. And Capricorn, as it correlates with guilt, and with the south node of Pluto in Capricorn, we all have a lot of guilt, natural guilt, and also unnatural guilt because of, a lot of religious beliefs that have been conditioning us for a long time. So yeah, I really do believe that the whole Capricorn archetype, just like any other archetype, they need to be expressed in a natural way, returning back to natural law and understanding how they've been distorted. So yeah, in order to become a real individual, of course, you need to take responsibility for yourself. You need to be mature. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Patrick,
Are there any more
can you
questions?
hear me okay?
Yeah.
Can you? Okay, I got into my car because I have to head back. That's why I didn't know we were on a break. Okay, so I was thinking relative to the eclipse tomorrow and the chart dynamic, right? Mars on the south node of Aquarius,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to back into Capricorn and the square to Uranus and the Leo sun and all of that. How do you see that as like an opening into the next 12 months or 16 months, or leading towards 2020, leading towards all those Capricorn planets? Do you Do you see anything in that?
Honestly, I personally do not. I do not look at eclipses as much as a lot of other people do. In EA, from my knowledge, Jeff Green, he didn't use them that much either. So I'm not the right person to ask about eclipses. I'm still a little bit on the fence with them. I observe them and I try to understand them to the best of my ability, but I do not really use them that much, to be honest. But since we're talking about eclipses, there's one thing that I do find really interesting that I do want to share, which was the eclipse of 2017 in August, if I'm correct, right? Which was some called even the Great American Eclipse. And eclipses, they basically cast a shadow, right? And who was elected at that time? You see, who was not at that time, but who was getting into motion? You know what I mean? This is just an interesting correlation. So, I mean, I really can't speak too much about eclipses because I really don't have that much experience about them. I've heard a lot, I've studied a lot about them and everything, but me, I'm very practical with my astrology because I have Saturn in the 3rd house, so that correlates to, theory and practice going hand in hand. And for me, eclipses are still quite elusive, let's say. So I really cannot answer you honestly, besides saying what I already said.
Okay.
Okay, Patrick, it's Linda. Saturn and Capricorn can represent fear, and a lot of these topics we've been discussing in your article and in your previous meeting were actually quite scary, and people making comments that this is so scary. So, actually, when we're considering these things, we can have a little bit of a fear reaction. Can you talk a little bit about that and how to deal with that and what it means?
I think you have people having bad reactions because people want to live in a safe world, right? People want to believe, that people want to create a reality in which nothing can happen to them, but that's not how things operate here. I think it really boils down to that. And, some stuff is scary. It's true. But life is scary. I mean, from before you're born even to all throughout our lives, there are scary stuff that happens. Now, I'm the type of person that I'm pretty much a realist, which is if something is going on, what are you going to do? You're going to do the ostrich? You're going to pretend it doesn't exist? Or you're going to face it? Okay, this is happening. By understanding this is happening, whether it's negative or positive, you can deal with it. Right? You can try to deal with it. This is why I bring things into awareness. And since you're talking about this topic, what you have is you have a lot of people trolling, because you have a lot of people who they want to live in this safe construct that I just spoke about. And when you come and you shake the foundations of that false safe construct, what happens? They're going to attack you somehow. And then if you realize many of these people who troll others, they do no research of their own. They try to ridicule and judge others. They try to insult others. And if you actually look at them, you touch the word fear. They're nothing but scared people. And yeah, we have to respect people and their processes. You're scared and the fear can paralyze you. And you respect them, but let's say let's call it as it is. They're just people who are scared.
Yeah, thank you for addressing that. That's really good. So any more questions from the audience?
There's a topic I would like to... Go ahead.
With what you were just saying, and this is more of my Pisces pitch, but like my Native American friends who, I'll start talking about something happening in my life or my body or my health or, whatever. And she's like, oh, you buy into your body way too much, into the reality of this. Nothing is real. That's what she says to me. She's like, if you know that even when your body dies, that you're not dead, You have nothing to fear. How much are you turning your life over, really? How much are you really giving your life over? So I go back and forth on that, you know. I mean, I shouldn't say back and forth. I do know that, and then I also realize that, you know, there's a whole big group of people here, and we're all in different places. So it's like, where do we, you know, I have a lot of compassion. So it's a fine line when you're a sensitive person, I guess, of what you're going to take on and what you're not going to take on. And hold the space. So I don't know, that's just the way I deal with it.
Well, your friend has a very spiritual perspective, but obviously not everybody knows that, you know, you're an immortal soul. And the less evolved your consciousness is, the more identified you are with the physical body, right? So, I mean, it's pretty natural to not want to suffer. You know what I mean? In that sense.
Absolutely. And, you know, if something was in the face of me, I mean, of course, I'm a human being. I'm going to have the reaction. And how much of my spiritual conscious essence is enveloped into my field, and do I live that more than just being a body? I think we're so over-identified with the physical, back to 3D consciousness, that it creates a lot of problems.
Look, we live in a world, you know, where scientists have been preaching materialism for I don't know how many decades, and here we go back, you know, the south node of Pluto and Capricorn. It's all about matter, 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 right? But that's not ultimate truth. That's not the totality of it. But we also have to realize that sorry, let me just finish this. That we're here to be human. We're here to experience the body. We're here to, you know, to experience all of these emotional realities and everything. So, I mean, I don't know what to say to that. You know, like, we're here to feel. We're here to be in the body. But it's also good to remember that this isn't the end all be all of everything. So it's to find a balance where, like, we're not living in a spiritual cloud, like, oh yeah, nothing can touch me, because none of us are Jesus. None of us are at the level where you can be, you know, crucified by other people and still have compassion for them. So we have to realize where we are in that sense. Like, we're here to be what we are. So it's a matter of balance. Not buying into our own, let's say, victimization, right? Oh, my foot hurts. Oh, my foot hurts. Okay, it hurts, but I'll manage. It's okay.
Patrick, with the north nodes of Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto in Cancer, which is the way forward, can you talk about strengthening our emotional nature and becoming emotionally self-secure, and perhaps using those Capricorn energies of the south nodes to become more mature? So to mature
that's a good question.
Emotional nature. Yeah.
That's a really good question. Well, I mean, what all of that stuff to me correlates, like the north nodes of Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto in Cancer, and the south nodes in Capricorn, it correlates that, you see, it's what we're talking about, where all of our security needs are projected onto the external world, onto giving our authority away, onto being, you know, approved by society, onto having material riches, onto having status and all of that. What all of the north nodes in Cancer correlate to, in my understanding, my opinion, finding security from within, right? Just because, for no other reason. And learning to nurture yourself from within, not based on what other people think, not based on judgment, because all of this Capricorn correlates with judgment. And let's remember something, not too far away in the past, if you were judged negatively, let's say by the authorities in your tribe or by your peers, by other people or whatever, you would have a hard time surviving, because you would be ostracized, right? You would get kicked out of the tribe, and then you would be alone. So this fear of judgment that we have, it is also connected to our survival needs. So if we can have our inner security developed from within our own selves, in which we're in which we're able to nurture our own selves, in which we're able to accept ourselves as emotional beings first, before we're social beings, then to me, we're going to be developing the north nodes which are in Cancer.
Thank you. That's a great answer. Thank you. Any other questions from the audience?
Well, something I would like to...
Okay.
Every time I go and speak, someone has a question. That's great. Okay. Sorry.
Oh, no. I really appreciate your insight, Patrick. And I just wanted to ask, to kind of go a little bit further into, and I feel like it's along the lines of what you're talking about with what you were just sharing about the Cancer, the North Node. But it feels like, especially in the US, that, and you touched on this a little bit, like how we're often judged as guilty or innocent. Do you see, like, and we all are guilty and innocent, do you feel like part of that taking more Capricorn responsibility might involve some serious changes in the justice system? Because it feels like, you know, in the US, we're presumed innocent until proven guilty, but that's not really how it is, right? Do you see any
you're
changes
guilty.
like
You're always
right.
guilty.
Exactly. And it's like out of that security, like trying to...
Honestly, no, I see things getting worse in that sense because of the, you know, the technology and the pre-crime and the whole behavioral analytics that are going to happen. Let's remember something. Facebook, people they think this is something that we were talking about just before, like Facebook. People think that stuff like social media and everything, it's only there, like, okay, you lost your privacy. Let's think about something. If you had access to everybody's data, like in real time, their communications, the websites that they see, the things that they like, the people, you know, that they interact with, all of that, all of this data, it gives you a hell of a lot of power, right? And with this power, they're not just like, okay, let's go and see what they had for breakfast. No, they can model your behavior, right? I mean, God knows what sort of computer programs, algorithms that they can have, which can do, you know, personality modeling, for example. When you link this with the justice system, this is already happening, pre-crime type scenarios. So you can actually be prejudged just based on computer modeling, because of predictive modeling, because of the possibility of a personality like yours committing a certain type of crime. You know what I mean? So no, I don't think in that sense that things are going to get much better. I think they're going to get freakier because of the use of technology and the potential abuse of technology. I think things will get better for those who split away from the mainstream and who create alternative ways of living. In the most cases, of course, there will be certain circumstances where, you know, not everyone in the government is corrupt. On the contrary, most people who work in the governments and positions of authority are normal people. They're just trying to do their best and everything. The problem is that they're also under this, let's say, Capricorn archetype of giving their sovereignty away, of giving their authority away.
Yeah. That makes
so no, I really don't. I think things are actually getting, you know, in the sense, and you know, I mean, just look at Trump, what they're doing, you know, to minorities and to people and everything, right? And let's not forget that all of this stuff is business, especially in the U.S., where all these prisons and everything, they're privately owned, so they're making money off of this, you know, off of the minorities, off of the weaker people, you know. And as resources start to decline because everyone's been sucking so much of them, then they're going to have to find stronger ways of, let's say, using humans as resources. So I really don't think that all of that stuff is just going to go away, you know?
Thank you. Yeah.
Not that it's good news, but
yeah,
that's
well,
what I
hopefully
say.
it'll lead us into a better future in some way.
I think if we want to have a better future, that's the thing. We have to create it for ourselves. We can't count on these people, you know, to create, I mean, on evil people on top of it, where the majority are evil, and those who are not evil, they're influenced by evil stuff like greed and power and the desire for status and all of that, to lead you into any good place. I mean, something really positive that I saw, I think it was just this week or last week, was in Mexico. a town of 20,000 people, I'm not sure the name of the town, they kicked out the politicians. They got rid of the politicians. They got rid of the authorities and like, hey, this is under our control now. And of course, crime has been almost, reduced or almost eliminated. People, they gain new hope. They have, of course, they have structure, they have security, they have their own authorities, which are, in any society, you're going to have natural authorities. If we go back to any tribe, let's say we can imagine a tribe in the middle of the Amazon, the best canoe maker, he's the one who's going to be teaching people how to make canoes. The best hunter, the children or whoever, they're going to go to him to learn about hunting. So you have natural authority based on your abilities, based on your experience, based on your knowledge. So in evolutionary astrology, one of the core themes is natural law. And this is what we have to gravitate back to. It's not natural for humans to act the way that we do, that we give our children to strangers to educate. This doesn't happen in nature. You don't see a rabbit giving their offspring to a snake like we do, or a sheep to a wolf. No, what you see is some animal, out of an act of compassion, out of instinct, taking care of another animal because they need it. Now, us giving away our children for other people to educate, that's one of the first problems, if you ask me. So it is a matter of reclaiming your authority and creating new structures, creating a world based on what makes sense, based on what works. Because all of this madness of voting in these politicians who, they're two-faced liars, that's all they are. Politicians are frontmen for corporations most of the time. They're not gonna help you. They're not gonna work for you and your neighbors and everything. They're gonna work for themselves, just like it's been proven to.
Patrick, perhaps we can talk about the people taking the power back into their own hands, which can correlate with Pluto in Aquarius 2023. So is there anything you'd like to teach about that?
I mean, I want to learn about that, to be honest.
Okay.
I mean, the only thing I can do is say what I've already been saying, which is turn off your TVs in that sense. Don't let people make you focus where they want you to. Stop reading the news and believing it. Stop falling for all of these traps and start living the life that you want to live. Aligning with other people, joining with other people who think like you or who share the same values as you. This is how we're going to create a new reality. This is how we're going to empower ourselves. That, and of course, to align with the higher principle, like Wendy was saying.
On the other hand, I watched a movie yesterday called Half Magic that was so hilarious, really good for women, very, very liberating. It was really funny. So there is some really good stuff out there also, right? There was something too I was going to say about Linda's question about I don't know. I guess I just keep coming back to like where's the power in the present moment, right? Because the projection of the future, because of such the dire situation that the world is in, that in itself is paralyzing and traumatizing. And then anybody that's learned how to leave their body, and pretty much everybody on the planet has learned how to do that at this point, I would think. But some of us are like adept at it from our own trauma experiences. Then we are not in the present moment, which is where the power is. The power is right here in front of us, right in this moment, being present in this moment.
True. Because
otherwise I'm leaking energy. I'm out there, and I can't be present to hear. What would you have me do today? Where is my surrender? Where am I going forward? For me,
your guide.
That's like primary.
Yeah. I mean, something I would like to add to that is like only by being present in the moment can you actually use your intelligence. This is where your power lies, in your intelligence and in your heart. There's nothing better than doing something intentionally, right? I want to create this. I want to create that. And when I say your heart, it's because it's what feels right. It's what's correct. It's what is positive for yourself and for others. So that is empowering. If we look at the great teachers like Buddha, Jesus, whoever, these guys, they had nothing but a huge heart and intelligence. That's all they had. And that's all they needed. And like you said, if you're living in the present and you actually you ask humbly, you ask your guides, ask them for help. They will help you.
Right, because like we could take it down to the 7 deadly sins. They're actually the 7 chakras. 7 chakras were open and conscious and flowing. And what did patriarchy do? They turned them into the 7 deadly sins. So
I never saw it that way.
Oh yeah, we have so much power. There's Tashi asking a question.
Hi, Patrick.
Yeah,
I'm looking at this chart and I'm curious how you would delineate Ceres opposite Neptune.
I don't use Ceres very much, or at all, actually.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there's so many asteroids, but I haven't resonated with Ceres yet. Something that I still need to look into more.
Okay. I am learning about her too, so I thought, oh, good, he put her in there. I'll ask him.
No, that was Linda who put that who made that chart up. But
Ask Linda.
Yeah.
Well, I had another question, actually. I wasn't really thinking of Ceres.
Okay.
The ruler of Pluto in Aquarius is Uranus in Taurus, which is interesting. And, you know, that is then ruled by Venus, which is also in Taurus. The North Node's in Taurus. They're all in the first house, which indicates, you know, something new, a new evolutionary cycle. So I think there's going to be a great focus on the self, because Taurus is like an archetype of emotional, physical, and material, emotional, physical, and psychological security from within oneself. So that's a huge focus.
With Uranus, though, wouldn't it? It would also be, I would think, the development of the higher self.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's groups as well, but being in groups and not really giving oneself away, but being self, you know, like just being really solid in oneself. Yes.
Yeah, autonomous.
Yeah. And yeah, go ahead, Patrick.
Sorry, what I think it really also correlates to a lot in general will be survival.
Yeah, why is that?
Sure. I mean, depending on what happens from now until when Pluto enters Aquarius, Pluto entering Aquarius can be traumatic, right?
Yes.
And ruled by Uranus and Taurus, then it might be the need for everyone to actually survive. Not only everyone, but certain animals, certain insects, certain plants.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, let's also understand that when Pluto enters Aquarius, and sorry, there's a lot of noise. Pluto entering Aquarius, it's also going to be correlating with man merging with technology, right? We're one step away from inserting all of the stuff into our bodies and starting to live in this augmented and then virtual realities where the owners of the world can play God. Sorry, someone's making a lot of noise with their mic. So it can also be, you know, where our difficulty in adapting to certain new realities and new ways of relating to ourselves, Uranus and Taurus.
Yes.
If you start to look at all of the archetypal potentials, there's a lot that can actually be speculated upon.
With that Pluto in that 10th house, I'm hoping, well, it could be because evolution is such a slow process, that Pluto in the 10th, it's like, you know, revisiting that Capricorn again. Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's not forget,
and building new structures.
Let's remember something, that Pluto, no matter what sign it is, the south nodes of Pluto, Jupiter and Saturn are still in Capricorn, and they're going to be there for a long time. I mean, I don't know about, I know that the south node of Pluto is going to be in Capricorn for another 500 years or so. So, and let's remember that Saturn is always the ruler of that south node. You see, that's one reason why Saturn is such an important planet in our lives and in our reality. So yeah, the Saturnian principle isn't just going to go away. You know what I mean?
I've got a question on what you all were talking about. Could it be the revisiting of, and I'm thinking of Saturn and Capricorn in terms of limits, and for people to limit not only, as far as their participation in say social media and all this other stuff, but actually limiting their participation in things that they do in their day-to-day lives. I mean, because it's great to say do some of the other stuff that you all have mentioned before, but if you're still supporting these corporations that are integral in, basically the enslavement of people, nothing's going to change. So, if limiting how we're feeding the beast, how do you?
I mean, I really don't know about that, but I can say I agree 100% with you, which is vote with your money, vote with your dollars. Where you spend your money. If you're going to be spending it, at McDonald's, let's say, or if you're going to be spending it at the local grocery store or the local farmer, that's going to make a huge difference. You see, that's where the power lies. It's in these choices. And the choices that we make, where we're going to be feeding others with our energy. It's exactly the same about what I was saying with your consciousness about watching TV or not watching TV. And, the thing is that this has a lot to do with the majority, the consensus. They're really indoctrinated. They're really structured to be in a certain way. And that structure isn't going to change. It's not going to change. On the contrary, I think it's only going to get worse, like we see everyone grabbing their phones and everyone, talking about, oh, this happened on the news, that happened and everyone being totally influenced by the corporate reality that's being dictated. What happens is, as the individuated ones and as the spiritual ones, they live different lives. What they can do is they can give the example to the others. Say, look, I'm healthy, I eat like this. Look, I'm happy, I live like that. So, I mean, I don't know if I'm actually answering your question, but this is the way I see things. And talking about corporate reality, I want to say something that I thought about, that I've been thinking about, that, just to show how so much of our reality is fabricated. It's all bullshit. Like, can you believe that in Europe, it was actually on the news in various countries in Europe? I actually saw it on TV. I was having, coffee out, and it was on, I don't own a TV, so it was a TV in a coffee place, where, Miss Piggy and Kermit the Frog, everybody knows who they are, right? It was on the goddamn news that these two separated. I mean, when you stop and you step back and you think about what it means, that this stuff is actually passing on, local television for tens of millions of people in in different countries that have nothing to do with America. Like, this is cartoons. Like, how can it be on the news that cartoon characters actually separated? What importance does that actually have in anyone's life? What that means to me is simply, look, hey people, you're living in a corporate reality. It has nothing to do with actual reality. And this is really weird stuff. When we think about this, so this is why I'm saying decondition from this stuff. Live the life that, you want to live. Stop thinking about, okay, let's go and talk about Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy in space. They got separated. Like, yeah, this is important. Like, this makes any difference for anyone and their lives. I don't know if that answered your question. I just kind of went on a rant here, but this is what I think about it.
It did. Thank you.
Great.
Hi, Patrick. It's Sue. I would like to hear, I noticed that Pluto is square the nodes in this chart, and I would like to hear your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a chart that Linda threw. I'm not sure. Let me see which chart is this. This is the chart for Pluto's ingress.
Pluto ingress into Aquarius. Yeah.
Yeah, it's at 0 degrees. Yeah.
Yeah. This I don't know if you read the article I read, but I wrote a little bit about this, and I really do think that this can correlate with the potential for massive trauma. And, you know, when we look at Pluto or any planet square the nodes, it correlates with skipped steps, right? Even in transits with temporary skipped steps. When we look here with the South Node in Scorpio, Scorpio can be the doom and the gloom. And the North Node in Taurus can be the need for what? To survive, right? So this is where I would focus my attention on. And when we think about all of the things that are emerging, like with all the technology we have, with the Wi-Fi and the 5G and all the cell towers and everything, what is happening is that we're being inundated with all of this electrosmog, let's say, with all of this EMF radiation. And this is weakening all of the life forms. And this can be a symbol for it. Another thing is stuff like, genetically modified organisms that can interfere with natural organisms and take them over because they've been genetically engineered to be more resistant, and therefore they can survive better. Another thing is synthetic biology. Another thing is all of these robots that are going to be starting to appear in the very, very near future. I know that the country that I live in, Portugal, they're already speaking about implementing like spaces where people can start to interact with robots. I mean, when we think about the core needs of society, the core needs of people, we need to feed people, we need to house people, we need to clothe people. We don't need goddamn robots, And when I look at these symbols, this is what I think. This can be a potentially critical point in the survival of many people. Another thing is the geoengineering, with the weather manipulation, which I stated in the article that I wrote, and which many people are waking up to now. When we have, for example, in Europe now, the weather has been switched. The northern countries in Europe, they're having 30 degrees or 40 degrees summer. And in the southern countries, we're having, London weather, really no summer at all, almost. What is this going to do to the food production? What is this going to do to all of the plants? What is this going to do to the farmers, to the poorest people in the poorest parts of the world who depend on their crops, who don't have money to actually go to the supermarket and buy food? You see, so for me, these are all of the things that might be potentially critical at that time with Pluto square the nodes, especially with the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio.
Patrick? Hi, it's Lauren.
Hi, Lauren.
I had two things. Hi, hon. I wanted to ask you two things. So, so in the beginning, we did evolve in evolutionary astrology, and we evolved from, mechanistic. Now we're into this tech, and now it's going almost, we reached a point, and now it's going the other way, because we were learning how to farm better, and now things have just turned dismal on us. And I agree with you, because I really don't think Taurus, even though it's ruled by Venus, that it's really about the altruism and the boxy, even though it is Venus. It's more about survival and insecurity versus the security. And it just seems like, what's your take on that?
Well, in evolutionary astrology, we learned that Venus has a double rulership, right?
Right, exactly.
With Taurus, which is our inner relationship to ourselves, and also that which we need for survival, and the outer rulership through Libra, which is our relationship needs which we project onto other people. So yeah, relative to that, I mean, let's realize that all of the agriculture, I mean, again, we speak about certain things, when we speak about agriculture and when we think about the future of food, I mean, just go into a supermarket and see that, look at the tomatoes, look at the peaches, they're all huge and they all look the same. And now with companies like Bayer and Monsanto and stuff like that, I mean, and with their merger, and again, with Pluto and Capricorn is exactly what I stated, is those mega corporations merging. Why? So that they can survive, so that they can keep on having power. And, with the control of the food supply, which is what is happening, And, you know, they're actually doing stuff like putting vaccines in food. It's crazy.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, all this, like, I'm not even going into the weird stuff, right? I'm just talking like superficial here. So
do you think we could like live at little societies then, and like the kibbutzes and stuff, like get our own communities and make our own food, and
but that's what's happening. That is what's going to start happening each time more. I really think so with Uranus Taurus. Yeah, people are going to say, look, they're going to. No, I don't want this. Like, I just want to live. And also with Neptune and Pisces, like people, they just want to zone out. Like, I don't want this anymore. This isn't me. This doesn't make sense. I didn't sign up for this. And when Pluto enters, by the time Pluto enters Aquarius, like, I think it's going to be very obvious that people are going to be living in technological prisons. Because a lot of people
already are.
Yeah, of course, you already are. You have been for a long, long time. But a lot of people, especially in the consensus and in the lower individuated states, you know, you have this wishful thinking. And also in the spiritual where, you know, you want to believe in the best. Me personally, I don't want to believe in anything. I don't like beliefs, to be honest. You know, I'm a Scorpio Sun, Mercury retro, and Scorpio conjunct Uranus, and I don't want to believe in anything. I don't care. I just want to know the truth. And a lot of people, they're going to be very, you know, disillusioned with what's going on, and they just want to zone out. They're going to want to zone out, and they're going to start living in these small communities. It doesn't mean that they can't be corrupted. It doesn't mean that they will be perfect. But I think people are going to start looking to grow their own food, especially when you think, you know, food is really expensive now and it sucks. So grow it. It's like growing money. So yeah, we are going to see a lot of that.
Okay, Patrick, we have about 10 minutes left. So do we have any more questions from the audience?
Can you talk a little bit more about the Cancer archetype and those north nodes in Pluto? I mean, north nodes of Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto.
Let's see. One thing that Jeff Green, he used to speak about is that, you know, with the north nodes there, and this is in the Pluto 2 book, towards the end, you know, it's about returning to our origin, returning to our spiritual origin. And for me, this origin, like Cancer, is the sign of the mother, is the sign of the divine feminine. So, and this is what has been so suppressed, right? I mean, if we look at the way that when I speak about feminine, I don't speak about women. For me, we're all male, we're all female. We've been incarnating time and time again, you know. So it's, for me, it really has to do with stopping judging one another. How are we going to, you know, Capricorn is judgment, and it has to do with care. Cancer, for me, at the simplest level, has to do with care. That's what nurturing is, to take care of something, right? So in the end, it's really about that. It's about caring for ourselves as emotional beings, accepting ourselves as emotional beings. Even if those emotions are based on trauma, even if they're based on victimization, whatever, live them out. Instead of judging, oh, you're so this, oh, you're so that, or, you know what I mean? Like, live it out. And accept them. And accept the emotions of another. And, you know, I'm not like a religious person at all, but I believe in the teachings of these religious people like Jesus and like Buddha and whoever, and like, love your neighbor. It's like, it's easy to love Beyonce, you know, who maybe sold her soul to the devil, nobody knows, but it's so hard to love your neighbor. So for me, this is what it means.
Thanks, Patrick. We have a question here from Carolyn, which she asked last time that we never got around to asking. Can you see it on the screen?
No.
All right, I'll read it out to you. She says, I have a general question. If someone has their north node at 26 degrees Cancer in their natal chart, conjunct the north node of Pluto at 20 degrees Cancer, would this be positive, hopeful, and a general direction to put effort into? If yes, how would this play out? and what kind of effort to apply in order to help the collective? Thank you.
Well, it's what we were just speaking about. Anytime you have your north node somewhere, that is something that we need to develop in order to evolve. This is something that we need to integrate within our personality, the moon, into our emotional body, the moon, right? So with the south node in Capricorn, for me, it's exactly what we were speaking about. Like to move away from this self-judgment, because something that we need to realize is all judgment, or at least all of this unnatural judgment, is self-judgment. When I judge someone for wearing, yellow shoes, maybe I'm just projecting my own fear of being ridiculed, And with the North Node in Cancer, it's developing that inner security just because you have the right to be. Why not? So yes, it is. Wherever you find the North Node, it is a positive area to develop in a natural, undistorted way.
Okay, so we have about 5 minutes left. If anyone else would like to make a comment, please go ahead now, and we'll wind down in exactly 5 minutes.
One thing that I was still thinking about that kind of keeps coming through, nothing happens in a vacuum, right? And so when you're talking about robots and all that coming forward, I mean, that's going to pull on the other end of the polarity. I just continue to feel like there's going to be more intervention than just the dark side of it. And that there's, a great light that will come forward. And I do think that Pluto and Aquarius will be a lot of liberating from, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with patriarchal oppression, basically, right? 10,000 years of patriarchal oppression. And I think people are going to be throwing off the churches, throwing off religion, throwing off all of that, and individuating more around that to break up that structure. It doesn't mean there wouldn't be the backlash. I mean, it's already here, right? I mean, if we look at Obama being elected and now we have Trump and the rise of all of this stuff, right? It's like if we look at a pendulum and we swing to one end, what happens? We swing to the other end to try to get in the middle. So I think that that is a reality as well. Yeah. I mean, no doubt about it. But don't forget that a lot of people, they're going to be tricked into, oh, robots are so cool. Oh, living in a virtual reality is so cool, that sort of thing. And something that we have to remember is that evil, it tricks you. Evil is dishonest. It needs to bullshit you. And evil is stupid. That's been happening for a long time. That's nothing new. It's just a different platform. Yeah, now they have technology. Now they have super technology. Let's remember that evil has no creativity of itself. Evil always is based on lies. It's based on deception. And it's always based on something else's creativity, on something that came before, on something that is truthful. You see? Right. And yeah, and this is why I keep on saying, focus on your truth. Even if you're wrong, whatever, but at least be honest with yourself, and, focus on that truth, because that truth and the desire for truth, most importantly, is what is going to liberate you. It's like, hey, I don't want to live like this. Hey, I don't accept this. Hey, whatever it is. Hey, this isn't me. And that is how people are going to liberate, through truth. I saw there was a question here from someone about cardinal archetype. Wanda was saying 1 step forward, 1 step back with the cardinal archetype. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we have to retrace our steps. We can't just keep on going in a straight line forever, right? And I think I wrote this in the article, which is what we need to recover, let's say, is our connection to natural law. Is our respect for nature, is our respect for all the other life forms that exist on the planet, besides humans and including humans. I think this is where we really have to go back. For example, we can create products, that's not a problem. We can have cars, we can have all sofas and all these things, whatever, but we can do them in a sustainable way. I mean, this is what I think we need to be doing. Like, instead of having so much money being spent on military budgets and on defense and I don't know what,
and having all of these corporations make products to sell you so that they can become each time more powerful and own the world. No, this isn't what should be happening. We should all demand, and this is how we demand, with our dollars, by voting with our money, with our purchases. Like, no, I'm not going to buy this plastic bottle. I'm going to buy a glass bottle, or I'm going to buy recycled plastic. That sort of thing. This is how we have to go back to principle, to living according to certain principles which are based in natural law. I think for me, this is what makes most sense in taking a step backwards to then continue moving forwards.
Okay, Patrick, thank you. That brings us to the end of your meeting. I'd like to thank you from all of us. We're looking forward to seeing you again. So would you all please thank Patrick Chehab, everyone?
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, guys, too.
Patrick. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great.